Well, hello. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of this handy dandy wave spawner we built and the tutorial that we wrote to help you understand what is going on in your game. Wave spawners are important. You will need them for things like tower defenses. You will need them for things like arena survivals, all sorts of games in that genre. And so, let's jump in. So the basic thing is you obviously are going to need to import some of the big pieces of the Horizon system, the thing that lets the code talk to the editor, right? And so in this case, we'll be bringing in some of the asset pieces, these types of things, so that TypeScript knows what we're talking about when we say, hey, this is an asset. Once we define the component and say, hey, we're calling this class a wave spawner, it's a thing that spawns waves. Hopefully pretty achievable. And then we kind of instantiate it on start. So there's different ways to do this. This is kind of a way to make sure that when you're starting the game, when the game clicks start, this method fires within that class. And essentially what you'll be looking to make sure for it to fire successfully is, did you tell the wave spawner what monster it is spawning? Very important. The computer, it's not very smart. And you will need to say, hey, computer, even though this is the only monster in my project, I need to particularly assign this into the wave spawner to say this is the thing, the entity, the prefab asset that we are spawning. And so essentially we're kind of using these prefabricated objects, very common in Unity, very common in Horizon, or it's becoming more common in Horizon. So hopefully that'll help. Other than that, the spawn logic's pretty simple. We just say, wherever the spawner is, create a monster every X seconds. What will the monster do? Right now, with this, it will stand there and do absolutely nothing. At the monster level is where you're going to define, hey, this monster, when it comes out, it walks forward and does a square dance. Whatever that monster does, in this tutorial, decide that the monster is named Charles or Charlie. And it's very, very okay to name your monsters and make friends with them. In any event, you'll need to set up the spawner, bring it into the system, and build just that basic pipeline of where's the spawner. That, at least in terms of how the script is set up, is where the enemies are going to emerge, where Charles will be born. What's the spawner entity? What is it spawning? What is it spawning? You know, Charles the monster, is it spawning Tina the monster? Whatever. Make everything assigned and then test it. Obviously, testing is very good. So this is a bit more of a filled out version of it. This can sort of help you understand, hey, the different choices you can make. And later on in this tutorial, we even have some tips about advanced challenges you can undertake. And some of those advanced challenges, for example, are spawning 3 monsters from one source. And I think this is the wave spawner 1 point. Or as we say, 1 spawn point, 3 mobs. So this is quite similar. Essentially what we're doing is we're still taking that origin of where the wave spawner is, instantiating 3 monsters instead of 1 at a certain time cadence. And then that monster will do whatever behavior is in its asset class. So if that monster, again, is to step forward 2 steps and do a square dance, they will all do that in unison. Especially if you're spawning 3. The only difference here is that we're doing an offset, so they don't all spawn on top of each other and then look like one big pile of monsters or confuse the player, because then they say, oh, I launched my laser gun at it and nothing happened. Well, you might have actually defeated one of the monsters, but there's still 2 in the exact same location. So that's where this element of you can either define different monsters for each, so it can spawn Charles, Harold, and Tina, the monsters' names, obviously. But then this is where we start talking about the offset. So we say, hey, so they don't all spawn on top of each other. We're essentially using that core spawner as benchmark and then saying on either side of it, around, I think it's the x-axis, or one of the axes, it will just be, separated by that interval. There's other things you can do. One of the ones that we, for folks that like rhythm games, we start talking a little bit about is the beats per minute spawner tutorial, where you're essentially feeding the music, feeding in the beats per minute, and that's affecting the spawner timer. And so where the time of like, okay, how often is a monster getting spawned is boodly boodly boot spawn in milliseconds right here, and it's similar. Anytime you see 1,000, that's every second because 1,000 milliseconds go into a second. But if you want it every half second, it would be 500, right? So essentially, this is just when that object says, I'm going to grab 3 Charleses and spit them out in the game environment. But yeah, that's our wave spawner. I know this is kind of a silly tutorial, but I wanted to make it fast and just a really quick rundown of the high-level ideas in this document. Hopefully this helps, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm at finalbossediting@gmail.com, and my colleague Michael as well is a rock star. So yes, total rock star. So anyways, if you want to ask us questions, discuss, let us know. Looking forward to talk to you. Ta-ta for now.